back to the Authentic Isn't Deep podcast. I'm your host, Izzy, and I'm so glad y'all are here. So glad y'all can make it, whether you're listening to this at 2 p.m., in the morning, in the afternoon, the evening, maybe even midnight, like wherever you are. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. So today we're going to be talking about when things don't go our way. And man, sometimes things in life definitely don't go the way that I want them to at all. And if you're a control freak like me, where are my control freaks at? You know that it is the most frustrating thing in the world. And if you are my target audience, which is like a teenager mate, like tweens, teenagers, young adults, like especially for teenagers, a lot of times we get told that we're either too young for something, too old for something. All the things. As young adults, there's like so much going on, from school to work, romantic relationships, friendships, personal development, and so much more. And it's like we're just trying to make sense of life, and it feels like nothing is going the way that we wanted or the way that we planned. There's this whole future ahead of us, and it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that it's not going the way that I wish it was, because if it were, I would not be here complaining. But a lot of the times in life, we feel like things are definitely not going our way, or we're just trying to trust the process, we know that this isn't the end, but we wish that we could see the end product right now. And one thing I have been learning in my walk of faith is that where there's uncertainty or discontentment in our lives is just another place where we get to trust God more. In those places like our future or our workplace where maybe we have no clue what's going on, maybe we don't know why that friendship is becoming distant, or we don't know why no matter what we do, our relationship isn't working, or no matter how hard we try, why we feel like we can't, make our parents proud, all these places where things just aren't going our way. These are just places where we get to surrender to God and let God rule over our lives as a sovereign Lord that He is. And that's where we get to exercise our faith and trust in God, knowing that He's going to work it all out. Because, we don't get our way a lot of the time, but we have to remember that God's way is always better than ours. And see, the thing is, when we try to follow our own path, we often walk onto the wrong path. So we fall out of alignment with what God has already planned for us. We put ourselves into a position where God is now going to have to unbuild what we have already tried to make sense of. And so maybe you're experiencing this in your own life like I have in mine, where maybe this job fell through. Maybe this relationship that we really wanted didn't work out. Or this friendship is maybe falling apart. And it just feels like the whole world is out to get us. And it just feels like nothing is going our way. And we're just like, God, why is this happening? I thought this was what you wanted for me. I thought you wanted me to have good things. But then God's like, just hold on. This puzzle piece you try to force in wasn't the right piece. So now I'm trying to put the right piece into place, which requires me to remove it. So this thing that we had tried to build up for ourselves, like the Tower of Babel, God is now like confusion, because I have a different way for this to go. And now He gets to rebuild whatever was there in the way that He wanted for us originally. His ways are not our ways. I mean, God even tells us that in the Bible. Isaiah 55:8 in the ESV version says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." The way that God has set things up, or the way that God wants our lives to go, is not always the way that we want it to go. God knows everything. And because He knows everything, His thoughts are so much better than anything we can try to make sense of in our own humanly understanding. And so with our own understanding, obviously our ways are going to be much different from the Lord who created everything. And so it can make it difficult when we are trying to do things our own way and God suddenly is like, no, that's not the way that it should go. And He unbuilds so that He can rebuild it into something better. And now to help you maybe understand this a little bit better, I'm going to tell you a story about, I'm going to guess, I was 9 years old. I was learning how to wash the dishes officially. I know 9 years old feels like a little late in that sense, but I'm sure I was younger. I just can't remember entirely. But y'all, I was so bad at it, my mom banned me from washing the dishes. And then when I Okay. Okay, we're gonna backtrack a little. So, I'm gonna guess it was like a nice Friday morning. My mom was like, wash the dishes. I'm like, okay, mommy, because I'm a very good child. I mean, I am, but that's also a joke. So I go to wash the dishes, and like I'm having a grand old time washing these plates and cups with soap. Like what child does not love bubbly, soapy water? And so, like I'm loading them into the dishwasher. I do my job. I start the dishwasher because in my family, we like to wash dishes twice. So the load finishes, and my mom's like, did you even clean these? And I'm like, yeah, you saw me at the sink. I washed the dishes. And my mom was like, no, honey, they're still dirty. And I'm just like, what do you mean? We wash dishes twice. But I did not do a very good job of scrubbing the dishes. And obviously the dishwasher, it was so bad that even the dishwasher couldn't correct it. So I had to rewash the dishes. Or no, I didn't rewash the dishes. My mom rewashed the dishes because I had not done this correctly in the way that it should go. My mom therefore had to step in to redo what I had already tried to do. The same way when we try to build up our own lives in the way that we think it should go, God has to step in to save us from what we shouldn't be placing ourselves in. And like it's annoying, but that's how we learn. And so the next time, after we're gonna guess like 3 months that I went to go wash dishes, my mom did not allow me to use a sponge or any. I'm pretty sure she allowed me to use soap, but I was not allowed to use a sponge. The way that she taught me to wash dishes was I had to scrub it and like I had to clean it with my hand, and then if I had to like rub my finger on it, and if I could not hear a squeak, it was not clean. So that's how I learned how to wash dishes. Back on topic. Sometimes this thing that we're trying to build up for ourselves is not for us. Then God steps in and he shows us what was meant for us. And sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And he shows us why what we were trying to have wasn't for us in the first place, so that he can show us why what he has is so much better. There's our way and then there's God's way. So how do we know God's will so that we can walk on the right path and do it right the first time? And the answer to that is that we have to be in communion with God daily. And like, I'm being serious, knowledge is power when it comes to our relationship with God. The Bible is called daily bread for a reason. Like we can't just live on bread alone, but we have to live off every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Psalm 85:8 says, I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people and not let them return to their foolish ways. I like this verse because David is saying that he listens closely to what God says. Like he's continually seeking what God has to say in his life, because he knows that what God is saying is going to bring him peace, and that what God has to say to his faithful people, not the people who have divided attention, the people who are consistently walking with the Lord, he knows that God is going to speak to them in a way that is peaceful and is going to bring them life. And what God is telling them is going to help them to not to return to their foolish ways and like the things of this world, because we are faithful to God and we know that what God has for us is so much better. We have to walk with the Lord daily, and we also have to be careful with who we surround ourselves with, because there is a very big difference between godly community and the ungodly community. I mean, if you just listen to the way that they talk when they give you advice for something you're going through, you're going to notice a very big difference. Because with ungodly people, if you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, they might tell you to do things that, maybe it worked for them. So they're following something that they view as tangible, because they trust in what they can see rather what they can't. So they'll try to persuade you to do the same. The ungodly people, because they're on the highway and not the narrow, they're gonna do things differently. Because for them, life is just like, like that song, life is a highway. Like, it's just a nice open road where, like you can swerve your car if hopefully there's no one near you, and it'll be fine. Like you can make all the mistakes you need, and like everything will be fine, quote unquote fine. It's like we often feel like like there's not like a lot of space for us when we're trying to do things the right way. So like when these ungodly people come around, you're like, you know what, just do what I do, and then like, you know, like you can go back to whatever the heck you were doing later on. It's like, okay, you know what, I think I can see what you're saying. That makes sense. Let me just do that. And we fall off the alignment of what God had been trying to give us when we were doing it His way rather than when we're trying to go off and doing our own way. So we have to be careful about what voices are pouring into us and telling us which way to go. One might seem easier in like the short run, but in the long run, it's only going to cause maybe pain, disruption, confusion, and it will not be worth it. But when we do it God's way, obviously short term it seems really hard, but long term it's going to pay off. We really do have to be careful about who we are walking with and what friends we are making for ourselves, because 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, "Don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character." When you walk with people who are not like-minded, because their character is shaped by this world, you guys are going to have different views, and it's going to clash when you're trying to come to things with like relationships and friends and like your workplace, because they're not going to tell you the same things that maybe a member at church will tell you to do. Because like say your boss just treated you unfairly, an ungodly friend might tell you to go slash their tires, but a godly friend is going to tell you to go pray for them, you know? There's just a very big difference in what's going to come out of their mouths. Because they walk by what they can see rather what they can't see, that's already a very big difference between the two of us as a non-Christian and a Christian. Because we as Christians, we walk by faith and not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. You know, 1 Peter 1:8 says, "You love him even though you have never seen him. Though you don't see him now, you trust him, and you rejoice with a glorious, inexpressible joy. The reward for trusting him will be the salvation of your souls." Because we walk by faith and not by sight, and we put our trust in the Lord, even when things maybe don't work out for us on earth the way that we think it should, it's gonna end up in like our salvation. We're gonna get to spend eternity with Christ because we know and trust that He is still working everything out. He is still working on our behalf, and He is gonna let everything work out the way that He wants it to and reward us in the end for that. And like you kind of like hear that and you're like, the reward is salvation for your souls, and it's like, okay, but like you think about what that really means. It's like, I get to spend eternity in heaven, which is where the streets of gold feast on feast, getting to sit next to Jesus, getting to praise Jesus, and just all this goodness. Just like, okay, you know what, that really doesn't sound that bad. I trust in God, and He's gonna bless me not only on this earth, but then I get to spend eternity in this really great place with Him. And I believe that's worth waiting for. I believe that's worth trusting in God for. So like even when things aren't going our way, we have to trust that things are going God's way, which is so much better than anything we could ever plan for ourselves. And when we walk in alignment with God's way, it's also going to be what we want, because we are desiring what God has for us. So what God has and what we want become the same thing. So if you really technically think about it, we are getting our way. The tea of the week, and I think it's something we often forget, is that God has our best interests at heart. I mean, after all, He's the same God who created our heart. He's the one who gave us our dreams and passions. He's the one who sparked it all within us. And because He sparked them, He wants to help us ignite the ones that are going to help others see Him through us. God is never going to let us down. He's never going to fail. So even when things don't go our way, they're going in a way that's going to be so much better long term. Because truly we can only see right now in the moment. We can't see what God has when this puzzle is done. So we have to stop trying to force the pieces and let go and let God. Even when things aren't going our way, they're going God's way. And God's way is not like our ways. They're better. God has good plans for us, not for harm, but for a good, hopeful, prosperous life. So I want to encourage you to Let God into those places where maybe you have uncertainty or you have discontentment with how your life is going. I want you to surrender that to God, because when you let go and let God, He will show up and He will just exceed your expectations of anything you thought you could ask for. Because maybe we're asking for just a rose or a bouquet, but God has a whole garden for us. He has more than what we could ever ask for. Maybe we might lose some things, but God is going to give us things that are way better than that in the end. We just have to keep trusting in Him and surrendering anything that we got to Him. It might feel hard at the beginning, but it'll be so worth it. And like maybe you still feel a little confused about, like things going your way, and maybe you're doing it your way and you're trying to do that in God's name, hoping that He'll bless it. And you're just like, I don't understand why this still isn't working for me. So next week, we're going to be talking about the difference of doing things with God and then doing things for God, because there is a difference. I want to thank you all for listening to this week's podcast. I want to encourage you to trust your life in the hands of the one who made it, because He really does have your best interests at heart. Because even when things aren't going your way or you can't see a way, He is Yahweh, no pun intended, and He can do all things. Because He's never lost a battle, and I know He never will. I hope you all have a very blessed week. May you all be encouraged, and yeah. See y'all next week. Peace out. Deuces!